How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the top 10 cheapest first cars that you can buy for less than £1,000. The 10 cars in this video are an absolute bargain when it comes to price, but on top of that, they're actually really cheap to insure, at least relative to 17-year-olds. I've done a bunch of quotes across loads of different first cars to basically find the 10 cheapest to buy and cheapest to insure. Though I know there'll be numerous other ones that I've missed, but these are probably 10 good ones to start with. For the sake of the quote, I'm male and I'm 17 years old and I live outside of London in an area that's kind of good, kind of bad for insurance. It's not really perfect for it, it's kind of in the middle. I'll put the details in the description down below. Topic of the week this week, in your opinion, is it better to have a brand new, fresh, beautiful first car or an old banger as your first car? Let me know in the comments down below and have a chat about it. I personally think an old banger is as good as you really need as a first car. It lets you learn. If you crash, it's not the end of the world, but let me hear your thoughts. Remember that I make these videos from the UK market perspective, so prices in other countries may differ, and remember that whenever you're buying any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance and road tax are all super important factors to consider, but I'll talk about them in this video anyway, so don't know why I mentioned that. As always, remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram if you want, and support me on Patreon if you really want. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Begrudgingly taking 10th on this list is a car that I'm not really a fan of, the first generation Honda Jazz. Not because I have a problem with the car specifically, but because one hit and ran my wing mirror. It has a 1.2 litre inline-4 putting out 75 brake horsepower, managing 0 to 60 in 13.3 seconds and 51 miles per gallon. It also has an annual road tax fee of £125, and I was able to get an insurance quote of £1,237, which is better than a few cars on this list, but I've put it in 10th out of protest for my poor wing mirror. Honda actually named the car the Fit in Japan and a few other countries, but gave it the Jazz nameplate in EMEA, Oceania and a few other areas in Asia. One thing that makes this car great for young people and students is the fact that it's a 5-door, so plenty of space and easy to take friends around in. You can easily get a 2005 model with around 70,000 miles on the clock for under £1,000, but you'll get a working model for as little as £300 if budgets are tight. Numerous long-term owners mention it being a very reliable car, and there are plenty of them with over 200,000 miles on the clock still going strong. Points to look out for are window control units, CVT gearbox issues, seizing locks and exhaust blockages, but even then, other than the gearbox issue, pretty chilled issues to deal with. Overall, it's a very practical and dependable car for any young driver. It's probably the least most interesting car on this list aesthetically, and it's never going to set the road alight, but the sensible individual might choose it. In 9th we had the first generation W168 Mercedes-Benz A140, maybe not a usual first car, but surprisingly cheap on insurance I've found. The car has a 1.4 litre inline-4 putting out 80 brake horsepower and managing 0 to 60 in 12.5 seconds. It's quoted as doing 39 miles per gallon and has an annual road tax of £235, quite expensive. I was able to get an insurance quote on one at £1,250 though for a 17-year-old. This A-Class was Mercedes' first venture into the compact car sector and is quite unusual in shape as it is tall but short. This led to the car failing the Swedish elk test of turning sharply in 1997 as it actually tipped onto its side. Mercedes recalled all the models sold to date, added electronic stability control and modified the suspension to fix the issue, so you can rest assured your car isn't likely to tip over. You can pick up one for as little as £500 in working order, but £1,000 will get you a half decent example with around 85,000 miles on it. But I would be very wary of getting one of these as a first car just for the Benz logo. It is riddled with potential problems that cost quite a bit to fix, like the manual gearbox failing, fractured fuel filler pipes, faulty ignition block, poor clutch life, the list just goes on and on. On top of this, reviews often say the car is actually awful to drive and not very practical, so if you're into your driving, maybe don't go for this one. It's these issues that keep the car down at the depths of this video. I don't think it's my cup of tea as an overall package, but I know people who had them as students, and given the low insurance, I felt it was worth a mention. In 8th we have the first generation R50 Mini 1 with the 1.6 litre inline-4 petrol engine putting out 90 brake horsepower and doing 0 to 60 in a respectable 10.6 seconds. More importantly, it will do 41 miles per gallon, has an annual road tax of £200 here in the UK, and I was able to get a quote on one for £1,250 per year. Not bad at all for a 17-year-old. The car built by BMW revived the Mini name from the old British icon, taking inspiration from its looks, although scaling them up to a safer size. Having personal experience of my girlfriend's one, it is a very nice car to be in when it comes to the interior, and drives very smoothly, so well worth considering. £1,000 will get you a 2005 example with around 80 to 100,000 miles on the clock, though you can still get working examples for as little as £400. Of course, buy at your own risk, don't take my luck with £400 cars for granted, particularly as the R50 is not known for reliability. Some common problems include power steering pump failure, seat mechanism braking, boot locking issues, numerous gearbox failures, and very fragile electrics, all of which can cost a bit more to fix fix in other first cars, as minis are considered slightly more premium. It's these numerous reliability issues that stop the Mini getting any higher on this list. If you'd like a more thorough review, I've spoken in depth about the car in a previous video. Taking the 7th spot, we have the Audi A2 with the 1.4-litre inline-3 TDI engine, putting out 88 brake horsepower, 230 Nm of torque, and doing 0 to 60 in around 10.6 seconds. Due to its lightweight aluminium construction, it was quoted as doing 64 miles per gallon and has an annual road tax of just £30. I was able to get an insurance quote at £1,250 on this, which is pretty sick for an Audi at 17. The car was chosen by Top Gear as one of the best small cars available still to this day, and it has won design awards for its concept and execution. According to Audi, the goal was to make a small Audi, not a cheap Audi, and a car that would transport 4 people from Stuttgart to Milan on a single tank of fuel. It's generally a very highly regarded car, which I find interesting as to me it looks a bit like a Mark 1 Audi TT has been squashed, but each to their own. £1,000 will get you a 2002 model around 90 to 100,000 miles on the clock, but they are available in running order for around about the £700 mark. In terms of reliability, over half of the faults reported on the A2 are electrical, so worth checking what lights are or aren't flashing when considering one of these. Outside of this, the turbo is known to fail and isn't cheap to fix. The gearbox also has the potential to fail, so if you're with even a slightly crunchy gearbox, walk away. I think this is a rogue little car to go for as your first, but it does seem to have some amazing reviews and a lot of character, so I'd love to hear first hand from anyone who's owned one as to what they're actually like day to day. In 6th, we have the 2nd generation Suzuki Swift GL, with the 1.3-litre inline-4 petrol engine putting out 90 brake horsepower, doing 0 to 60 in 10.6 seconds, and being quoted at doing 48 miles per gallon while costing £160 in road tax. I managed to get a quote on a 2007 model for £1,250, which is really decent. When I say 2nd generation, I actually mean the first car we in the UK would know as the Swift, because outside of Japan, the 1st generation Swift was called the Ignis. It's a staple for young drivers, and if you're a football fan, then what you may find particularly interesting is the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo fronted the marketing campaign when the Swift was launched in 2005. £1,000 will get you a 2007 model with around 50 to 60,000 miles on the clock, which is not bad at all for a first car, and you can get a questionably conditioned example for as little as £400. In terms of reliability, I've seen a few reviews mentioning the build quality not being perfect, with brake squealing issues due to brake pad and disc wearing early, as well as the paintwork having defects from factory. Looking at the engine, I haven't been able to find many common problems anywhere except for the gearbox, with a few owners having a few gearbox input shafts go. All in all, a very nice little first car, built specifically for the European market. I would be jealous of someone at school driving one of these as their first cars. On to the top 5 now, and in 5th we have the 3rd generation Renault Clio, specifically with the 1.2-litre inline-4 engine putting out 73 brake horsepower, doing 0 to 60 in 13 seconds, 47 miles per gallon, and an annual road tax of £145. I was able to get a quote of £1,177 for black box insurance, which is pretty sick. The 3rd Gen Clio shares its platform with the Nissan Micra, another first car I could have included on this list, but my own bias suggests the Clio is a better looking car overall. It's actually quite a big car too, pushing the limits of the Super Mini class. That said, it won European Car of the Year in 2006 and was described as the benchmark for its category by many reviewers. From personal experience, a good friend of mine had one as his first car, and it was a very decent first car in terms of amenities and comfort. You'll get a 2007 example with around 75,000 miles on it for £1,000, but we'll get a high mileage example for £600. Electrical faults are common in this generation of Clio, so worth checking before you buy, in particular the brake lights. In terms of major issues, there are very few reported when it comes to the petrol 1.2. Automatic gearboxes can be troublesome, and a few examples built towards the end of 2010 had some pretty bad valve issues, so maybe don't buy a 2010 model just to be safe. I think this is a nice little first car, and you can always aspire to have the Clio RS, which is one of my favourite hot hatches from the noughties. In 4th we have the 1st generation Kia Picanto, which always reminds me of the UK TV programme Take Me Out, as I always remember hearing Kia Picanto sponsors Take Me Out on Channel 4. Probably a niche one for those of you outside the UK, but either way this car comes with a 1-litre inline-4 putting out 61 brake horsepower, doing 0 to 60 in 15.9 seconds and managing 57 miles per gallon. Annual road tax is super cheap at just £30, and the quote I got for it was £1,169 with a black box, or £1,517 without a black box, so just under £400 more for a little more speed freedom. The car comes well equipped for young drivers with tech ahead of its time like the MP3 and aircon as standard. Comparatively, the Swift I mentioned didn't come with an MP3 slot, which kinda sucks. Another friend of mine has one of these, and I'm always surprised at the fact it has 5 doors given how small it is. I've driven it and it's quite nippy as a city car, so maybe one to consider for those who don't plan on driving on motorways too often. £1,000 will get you a 2005 model around 50 to 70,000 miles on the clock depending on condition, and £600 is about about the minimum you'd want to spend on a working example. Reliability on the Picanto is pretty solid, with owners praising the car's dependability. The engines and gearboxes are relatively strong, as are the electrics and suspension components, making it a pretty good all-rounder. One point is that these cars are mostly driven by older people and first-time drivers, so if possible I'd suggest going for an example owned by the former. An ideal first car, even if it lacks a little bit of excitement. I wouldn't be able to get one though, as I wouldn't be able to get Paddy McGuinness's voice out of my head, but whatever. Third place in this video is the Peugeot 206 with the 1.4 litre inline-4 engine, putting out 75 brake horsepower and doing 0 to 60 in 11.8 seconds. It's quoted at doing 44 miles per gallon, has annual road tax of £160 and gave me a quote of £1,158 for insurance. You can get it in 3 or 5 door, and I'm personally a fan of the former, as the 206 is one of my favourite rally cars from the World Rally Championship, so 3 door makes it feel a little bit more sporty. There are plenty of them too, as the 206 is the best selling Peugeot model of all time, with over 8.5 million of them being sold between 1998 and 2012. There are numerous body styles for the car too, including a convertible, estate and saloon. £1,000 will get you a 2007 model with around 50,000 miles on the clock, and you can get a ropey old but running model for as little as £300. Reliability on the 206 is not ideal though, very much reinforcing the stereotype with French cars. Mechanical reliability is rated as below average, as is the interior quality. Central locking is known to fail, engine mounts are known to break, gearboxes are known to rust, and front lower ball joints are known to cause severe juddering. So maybe not ideal from the reliability aspect, but a cheap, cheerful and popular first car choice. Just maybe be ready to sit on the side of the motorway waiting for a tow truck. Just missing out on the top spot, we have another French car, the Citroen C2 with the 1.1 litre inline-4 engine, putting out 61 brake horsepower and doing 0 to 60 in 13.9 seconds, consuming 48 miles per gallon and costing you £145 annually in road tax. The quote I got on this was £1,146 with a black box, or £1,597 without. It replaced the popular Saxo and was directly aimed at the younger market by Citroen. It won the Best European Hatchback Award in 2003, despite many mentioning the car was under-promoted by Citroen, which is pretty good if that's the case. There are numerous different trim levels of the car too, with multiple spec options. The LX is the simplest and the SX is the most luxury. You'll get a 2006 SX model with 75,000 miles on the clock for around £1,000, but you can find working C2s for as little as £400. Be careful if you get a semi-auto C2, as there are problems with hesitation between gears. Rear brakes are another source of locking issues, which isn't ideal. From what I can see online, the 1.1 engine seems to be the least problematic, but 1.4s and 1.6s have been known to have issues, so worth being aware either way. Again, not super exciting, but it's a first car, so what can you expect? Nice, easy car for young drivers to get a hold of with cheap insurance, only beaten by the next car on this list. It's going to seem like I planned this, but I can promise you I didn't despite being an owner. The VW Polo 9N3 takes the top spot on this list due to an insurance quote of just £1,091. It has a 1.2 litre inline-3 engine putting out 64 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 14.4 seconds, with a quoted 47 miles per gallon fuel economy figure and £160 annual road tax. Anyway, I own a 9N, not a 9N3, so only partially biased. This is a major facelift of the 4th generation Polo, with the obvious difference being the shift from the little circular 9N lights to the more modern 9N3 lights. If you want a super in-depth understanding of this generation of Polo, I've got loads of videos on it, so feel free to have a look at them, but basically it's a strong car, generally acceptably built for a cheap VW, with quite good handling and suspension for the money. As an owner, I would recommend one. I used it in my final year at uni and it worked perfectly, and my best mate had one as his first car and it was perfect. You can pick up a 2006 model around 70 to 80,000 miles on it for £1,000, or you can get a 9N3 for as cheap as £700 if you want it in running order. In terms of reliability, I found that the 64 brake horsepower engine constantly spat out coil packs, at least 1 to 2 a year, so that's worth checking. Also, it has got issues with oil leaks over time, so be wary of that. Overall though, the engine is strong and took me on a 2,536 mile road trip around Europe with ease. Feel free to watch the video I made on the trip to learn more. I would say this is a worthy winner of the top spot, but of course I am biased. So what's important is the fact that I managed to secure such a low quote with it, meaning hopefully you guys can get something at least slightly similar, depending on where you live. So in this video, I'm running through 10 first cars that I think you can buy for less than £1,000 and insure quite cheaply. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget the topic of the week as well. As always, remember to like, comment, subscribe, Instagram, Patreon, all the good things. But as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.